Happy Sunday evening, everyone. Welcome to Ghost of Bacon. I'm your host, Jack Roberts, and got a really cool show for you tonight, I think. You guys are really going to like this a lot. Looking at the chat, great to see you guys. Hi, John. See you just popped in. Good to see you. Penny. Mary, you were the first one in, I think. Tom. Amy. All of our usual suspects. Wanderer. Thanks for joining, folks. So tonight, over the last month or so, one of our members of the Ghosts of Bacon has been posting some really cool pieces of information. Hey, Jeff, good to see you, my friend. Hi, Z. Um, David Neisen is in the house, and he's going to be sharing his latest research with us. And I think this is going to be really, really pretty enlightening. So here's my friend David. Nice to see you, my friend. Glad you could join us.
Thank you very much.
So I think to start off, David, if you could, would you just kind of fill everyone in who you are? How'd you get into this? What got you started?
Sure. Anyone who's studying coconut fiber has got a story to tell.
Exactly.
I was an intelligence analyst with a service, worked at NSA, and then came down with diabetes and was retired, but did the same job as a contractor for NSA and the Air Force Intelligence Command in San Antonio, which is where I find myself. After I retired, I started a wooden nickel manufacturing company. I befriended a gentleman who had a 50-year-old company. He passed away, and I had gotten into the business to the point where I thought I could do this. And so I created a new printing process, and within 2 years became the second largest wooden nickel manufacturing company in the world.
That's amazing.
Had a heart attack, and my wife said,
Gosh.
no more. So I sold the process to a toy company that was affiliated with Disney, and retired for a second time. And about 7 years ago, I started watching Curse of Oak Island with a friend of mine from the service, and we started analyzing things. Having watched too much CSI, I figured everything can be explained. It just needs the right scientist or science approach. And as you may or may not know, I wrote 2 books about the trees, and I talk about the coconut fiber and some other things. So before I get into explaining that, I would like to do a homage to the trees that was recently cut down. That's document number 1.
Yep. Before we get that, Amy Mulliken pointed out that she loves your T-shirt, David.
Okay, so again, because this is
you showed me this before the show, so this is great.
The Ghost of Bacon group, and all the pages you guys look at, and the capital letters mean something special, and the positioning means something else. So I said, well, I've got lots of Oak Island T-shirts, and so does everyone else. But why don't I wear this T-shirt, which is my way of Bacon passing hidden messages in text by using capital letters.
I just was while we were waiting to start the show, I just was telling Christy about what your shirt said, and she just died laughing. That's awesome.
And my wife thinks it's wonderful.
I'm sure she does. Absolutely. Well, all right. Well, let me go ahead and I'll add your presentation to the stage here. I'm gonna pull that up like that. Maybe if we go like this. There you go.
So basically, unfortunately, 2 weeks ago, a bunch of morons cut down the most famous, the most photographed tree in all of the United Kingdom, and that is Herod's who's the Hadrian's Wall, which goes from the left down and up to the right, and that tree has been there. Some say 150 years, some say up to 400 years. But I want you to know that that is a Acer pseudoplatanus, or a European sycamore, the trees that you see in the middle picture. The arrow was added when James McQuiston cut a picture of the tree from the bottom image to fill that gap to show the similarities of the trees.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so one of the points I want to bring out here is that when I first started looking for the trees of Oak Island, I assumed there were trees that looked like that grew normally. And that was not the Baconian method. It was an inductive reasoning method.
Right.
And it bit me in the butt when we found out that the tree up top doesn't normally grow like the tree in the middle and the bottom. Certain tropisms affected it. And so, again, as a way to tip my hat to the Baconian method and the research, we know what those trees were on Oak Island. We don't know 100% because we haven't done any DNA testing, haven't found any roots or stumps on the island. But I think with the Baconian method, we've come pretty close to proving what those trees were.
That's
So
great.
I just wanted to tip my hat to the loss of that tree. All right, so in chapter 1, so the new book is called Oak Island Mystery Trees and Other Forensic Answers, Fibrosity, because, I'm not very creative. And so this is really the third volume of the set. And chapter 1, I'm skipping over completely because that's about the curse. And there's not much I can say without giving away things. So I'm going to jump over that. Chapter 2 is titled Too Old for Dating. And all of you have seen the chapter plates that we've designed and I've posted online.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to bring to your attention here is that these are basically the known radiocarbon datings of artifacts and items on Oak Island. And the red one is not on Oak Island, which is why it's red, but it falls in this group. The blue represents the coconut fiber that we base the window of radiocarbon dating between 1229 and 1330 AD. The one on the top we throw out as an outlier just because it's so much out of line with the other items. So as a lot of people have argued about the radiocarbon dating, is it worth anything? Is there what's the certainty? Well, it's 95% certain. And people then turn to the eelgrass and say, well, wait a second, how can you have newer eelgrass laying on top of old coconut fiber? And the answer has actually now been found out. And that is something called blue carbon. So in this, do you want me to explain it?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so in the quest to get rid of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, we've realized that the oceans are gigantic sinks of carbon dioxide.
Yes.
And when I say a sink, it means it literally floats into the water and dissolves or falls down into the ocean. I don't know if you can go to the bottom of the ocean and scoop up carbon dioxide, but plant life is the primary absorber of that carbon dioxide, and eelgrass is the #1 aquatic plant that absorbs coconut fiber. Carbon dioxide. So why is this important? Well, a coconut has a given life period of 1 year. After that, it's dead. And after that, it will not absorb carbon dioxide. Eelgrass, on the other hand, has a longer shelf life. It lives longer. But more importantly, it's swimming in a sea filled of carbon dioxide. And so it absorbs more carbon dioxide. The whole concept of radiocarbon dating is when the plant fiber is dead, it's tested for how much carbon it has lost over a period of time.
Right.
If it started with way more carbon than it normally would have as a plant, then you're going to get a much younger age for the plant because it absorbs so much carbon. So what they don't have is a baseline. No one's taken a piece of eelgrass and grown it in an aquarium and then cut it up and then let it sit for 100 years to then radiocarbon to find out he's right. You know,
exactly.
It's much older than we thought.
Right. So, real quick question. One of our viewers, Amy, is pointing out that there are a lot of tree lovers here. That's for sure, Amy. Jan asks a question. What year was that picture taken? Do you mean the one in the middle, Jan? I'm assuming. I'll go back a slide.
So the Hadrian Wall sycamore, that picture is an old picture, but it was cut down 2 weeks ago. The middle picture, minus the tree in the center, is a one of that shot's been used to represent the trees on Oak Island, and I believe the setting, based upon the spruce tree below, is in the 1880s.
Okay.
The tree on the bottom is a 2002 photograph.
Okay. Great. Thanks for that, David. Great question, Jan. And so John Edwards is going to get his scuba gear together. He says he's going to go check out the carbon dioxide for us. Thanks, John.
And that means that when he comes back up, he'll have carbon dioxide crusted all over him. He'll look much younger than he does now.
I'd pay to see that. All right, great. So let's take a look at the next slide.
Okay,
now,
so
I found this picture to be really interesting. Kind of walk us through it here, David.
So let's start over there in where the green and the yellow are near each other. There are two subgroups or subpopulations of coconuts. There's a new kapha and a new vai. Those are Samoan words. And basically the new vai is a dwarf coconut, and it was domesticated by man and used to go from island to island to island to island because it was a great water source. It holds more water than the new kapha version of the coconut, which has a lot more husk. And that's the one that is the yellow and orange. And that's the tip of India, or the Kerala region of Malabar coast of India.
Mm-hmm.
The A, moving over to the B, is the Vasco da Gama trip back to Portugal, where he brings it to the Cape Verde Islands off of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Now you see the E and the F. This has got to do with the earlier trade between Indian merchants, sailors, doing business with the East African coast, as well as those Austrasians who traveled into the Indian Ocean and went to Madagascar.
Right.
And so you have this mix. The E is basically Pemba Island, Malindi area of East Africa. And it has now been proven that the coconuts first came to that area between 770 and 970 AD.
Oh, wow.
So they weren't in Africa all this time. And the B, which then moves over to D and C on the right side.
You're here in the Americas. Yeah.
That's right. That represents when the D represents when part of Vasco da Gama's group veered off and went to Brazil. And the C represents when the slave trade embarked. They used coconuts as a food stock for the slaves on the ships.
Right.
They didn't care about growing coconut plantations. It was all about getting slaves to first mine ore and then cotton and sugarcane.
Right.
But that's how it got to, and the C was first found in Puerto Rico in 1554. So long after our coconut fiber was dated from Oak Island.
Right. Interesting.
Okay, these slides are from the book, and they're a little hard to see because I thought the book was going to be black and white, and now it's going to be color. So,
oh, nice.
I had to make them stand out. The top slide shows the actual growing zone of the coconut. The darker shaded area is where they will produce coconuts. The lighter shaded area outside of those latitudes is where they'll grow but not germinate coconuts. So You can have coconuts in northern India, but they're not going to make coconuts. The second slide is the version of the subgroup called Nukafa, and where it started from and where it was spread to. So you see East Africa, you see Madagascar, you see West Africa, and then parts of the Caribbean area.
Mm-hmm.
And at the bottom, this is specific to the range between that time period, i.e. the age of the radiocarbon dated age of the coconuts from Oak Island. There were only certain places that had coconuts, and you could see they hadn't gone to the Atlantic Ocean whatsoever.
Right, and those of you watching at home, that the dates there, if you can't actually see it, it's circa 1159 to 1400 AD. That's going way back.
Yeah. On the top here we have so the coconut husk is where we get the fiber. The husk is the part of the drupe, kind of like a plum or a peach, that covers the seed, which is the nut on the inside. In India, they learned that you can take this husk, and if you process it, and it takes 11 to 12 months to process it, you can make fiber out of it. And from the fiber, you can make rope, mats, about 1,000 different items. So where do they know how to do the retting of coconuts into core? And the places primarily in India, or where the Indian traders did business. Madagascar, East Africa, and some of the islands, Jakarta. Some didn't use it because they had other products that were much easier to do than take a coconut, soak it for a year, and then beat it up and then make fiber out of it.
Right.
Next one is processing. Well, was this a big thing? Did people go, oh my goodness, look, we've got core fiber now? No, because they had better things that took less time. They had rattan, bamboo, rami, maybe about 14 different other plant fibers that were superior to coconut fiber in their world. Even in Brazil and South America, they had yucca and sisal and other products where, why beat a coconut up when I can just simply go grab a branch and shred it. So these were the only places that they actually processed for core.
And viewer John Edwards comments, archaeologists have reported coconut fiber on Oak Island dating from the 17th and 18th century, and coconut husk dating from the 18th century. That's interesting, John. Thanks. I'll leave out your comments to Amy about being an Atlantean.
Okay, dope. I would love to know where he got that source. I think I know what it is, and I can show where that's completely false.
Oh, anyway, good to know.
The bottom one is core retting required. In other words, where was this done at all? In the Atlantic, it wasn't instituted until 2002.
Oh, geez.
And the craze of coconut milk made all the coconut manufacturers think of ways to develop money streams from the byproducts. And that's when retting of coconuts became a thing in the Caribbean. The rest of the world, no, because there was no money in it. It was way too long of a process. Even the Philippines, they didn't ret any coconuts until 1901.
Interesting.
All right, so in chapter 4, this is the chapter that really gave me a lot of heartburn, because as I learned about coconuts, there was a lot I didn't know, and there was a lot that was wrong about what I found out. One of the things, so this chapter, and I've posted this on all the groups.
Yeah, this was a neat one.
Right. This chapter explains where the botanists got it wrong, the historians, the classical writers, they just got it wrong. And so I tried to show in this chapter the error and the correction. So this, what you're seeing here, is hieroglyphics, and it's from the Salyer 1 papyrus that they found. and it's a daily prayer to Thoth. Don't ask me who he is. I mean, I do know, but what's the matter? And you can read the English translation of the hieroglyphics, and you see the word dome palm, which is highlighted. Well, this is the current definition. The original definition said coconut. And you, on the next screen, you'll see why they got it wrong. On the top is the nut or the seed of the dome palm, and on the bottom is of the coconut palm. They look very similar. It's only really the size that makes the difference. So when current archaeobotanists and paleoethnobotanists have examined excavation sites, have they learned that no, it was the dome palm. The coconut palm never lived within the greater Mideast area, nor did they import any commodities other than, and even the coconut oil didn't come in first because there's a palm that's in Africa that produces a better oil. So that was the oil that was brought in from a long time ago. So there was no way for the Egyptians, the Romans, the Templars, or any other people to have coconut fiber to eat or coconut milk to drink or make ropes out of coconut fiber.
Oh, wow.
So the other part of disproving the story is, you know, coconuts have a shelf life. It's not a short shelf life. It depends on how they're packaged and delivered. But if you're going to get coconuts from India, it's going to take 30 days to get to the Horn of Africa. And there are 3 or 4 ports there that Arab traders, African caravan lines, and Indian traders would meet to pass around their wares. But due to the monsoon season, once you left India, you would have an 8-month stay on the Horn of Africa waiting for the shift in the monsoon winds so you could then go up the Red Sea area. In eastern southern Africa at Rapta, which is also where Pemba is, and Malindi, it's not as long of a jaunt. It's about the same time frame to get up to the Horn of Africa, but again, you're stuck in this holding pattern. Let's say for some reason you're super lucky, you get to the Horn of Africa and you just go ahead and risk it. Well, you can see the duration of time it takes to get to Bernanke, which is where the land travel is over to the Nile and up to Alexandria and to Europe. That coconut would have rotted long ago.
Wow.
So it's just not possible. And in the chapter, there's a story about how Marco Polo saw the coconuts, and that the writer of the article says that, and he probably got them from East Africa where they were plentiful. Well, no, that's not the case. Okay, the reason why I'm on this podcast is because of this picture.
Exactly.
And because of this inconvenient book. I don't know if there you go.
Oh, here, hold on. Let me put you on there.
There you go. So
book up.
I get this book and I read, I think it's chapter 25, and I blow a gasket. I spent 5 years researching coconut fiber, and my third book is chapter 12, excuse me. And the whole idea of this third book is to show how did the coconut fiber get from Kerala, India to Nova Scotia. And 3/4 of the book is finished. And I go through the ships, I go through rigging, I go through all of this. And I come to this picture. And Z and Lisa and, of course, Jake tells me to look in the forest behind this little battlefield. And what do I see? I see 3 palm trees. And I turn cold. I said, oh my God, I have checked Bacon backwards and forwards. I was looking, did he ever say about a palm tree? Did he ever talk about palm trees, a filtration system? Where did he get palms? And here in this picture, supposedly done by Champlain, I see palm trees.
Mm-hmm.
So that immediately tells me, from what little I know about Bacon, is that his ego, being as large as it is telling everyone, I know it's on Oak Island. I know it's on Oak Island.
Exactly. And the other thing too is that this is a scene of a battle that took place on the shore of Lake Champlain, um, between the Huron and the Iroquois, that Bacon assisted in, and I found this picture and identified those palm trees because of a ciphertext that appeared in the plaque of of all things, Shakespeare's funerary monument, Holy Trinity Church in Stratford-upon-Avon, and so when you and I started talking and you said, "Palm trees, really?" And I'm gonna spare the audience with the words you used, but I thought it was really funny.
Yeah, I was laughing the entire time. So it just so happened the same day I read an article about a group of people have resurrected a extinct palm species from 2,000-year-old seeds that were found in Masada, Israel, up in
Amazing.
King Herod's fortress. And I'm reading the article, and it's very specific as to where these particular palms grew exclusively in the Levant. And I'm looking at the picture and I said, oh my God, that's what a date palm looks like? I go back to this picture. I don't see coconut palms. I see date palms.
Oh, wow.
That's when I realized I need to go back, look through the Oak Island literature. Who said it was coconut fiber? When did they say it? What proof did they have? And can I get a warm and fuzzy? And then, as most of you know, in posting I Have a Hunch, I did not get a warm and fuzzy.
Exactly.
So then I started researching date palm fiber. What is the similarities? And so here's a picture. One of the things I couldn't understand was, well, where does the fiber actually grow on a date palm? It's not on a coconut husk, so where is it? It's not with the dates, which you see in yellow, or orange rather, hanging there. It's a webbed or mesh fiber that grows to protect the new shoots of the palm branches. And so the picture on the far left, you can kind of get an idea. It's growing wedged up in that area. The lower part of that picture is where they've cut off the branches and it's now just kind of dead. So now you see what the date palm fiber looks like.
Wow.
And on the right, you see the different products that are made using date palm fiber. And all these images are from the Cairo Egyptian Museum in Cairo.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
In this picture, just to be specific about palm trees, they're not all the same. There are 2,600 species of palm. On the left, you have our date palm. And you could see where all those branches, as a tree has grown, have been cut off. And on the kind of top part, you can see where it's kind of more of a conical shape. The new branches are growing. The tree in the middle is a different kind of palm. It doesn't produce dates, and it doesn't have the protective fiber. And last but not least, like a coconut palm, you have the smooth, relatively smooth textured trunk.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
This is what really blew me away. The date palm, which the experts call core fiber, and the coconut palm core fiber, to me, are almost indistinguishable. And
they look just like, yeah.
And well, on the right-hand side, you have a wig made of date palm fiber, and that's circa the Roman Empire. I'm not so sure you would want that much hair in the heat of the day.
I certainly wouldn't.
Yeah. So getting real back to this one real quick. All right. So this is about, well, why would they take date palm fiber to Oak Island? If you're in India, you take coconut fiber because, well, they build their ships using coconut fiber. They tie the pieces together. You use it for caulking, you use it for rigging. So you're going to want to have it on board. So if you need more rope or if you sprung a leak, you can repair your ship while you're sailing through the Indian Ocean.
Sure.
And I believe that the sailors, if they thought they were going to Oak Island, they would have assumed that the tropics of the Atlantic were similar to the tropics of the Indian Ocean, and they would need that coconut fiber because it's a much longer trip. In fact, they're different in one sense specifically. In the Indian Ocean, the monsoon weather pattern creates a highly salinal or salt water atmosphere and water. And you literally can see salt hanging off of rigging on a ship as it accumulates in the moisture in the air. And that will rot fiber and flax and other fibers right away. And so you literally needed to redo your ropes as you're crossing the Indian Ocean, and they assumed up the Atlantic.
Wow.
So if you're leaving from India, you want the coconut fiber. If you're leaving from the Levant, maybe you're taking it because it's the most important thing since sliced bread.
Right.
They worship to be a good Muslim, you have to be like a date palm tree. The Jews, all of history in that area reveres the date palm.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're planning your trip from the Levant, one, you're going to want casks of the dates because the Judean date palm date lasts up to 14 months, just sitting on a table somewhere. So you don't have to store it, especially you don't have to salt it. You don't have to, it's going to sit in your pocket. You can eat it whenever you want to. And then the other thing is, well, you're going to need rope. You're going to need stuff. You're probably taking the palm branches with you because of their religious affiliation with either Moses or King David or Jesus or the other people of that time. So if you're confiscating religious iconography out of Jerusalem, you're probably going to grab a whole bunch of date palms, and you're going to grab the ones that are the most popular, the ones that last the longest, and that's the Judean date palm.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not believe either the coconut fiber or the date palm fiber was used as a filtration medium. I think that was an afterthought, that they get to Oak Island, they use what they have. Probably the different chambers are filled with date palms as well as date palm fiber, but they had extra. And so they put it where they could put it.
Right.
Because there's no reason why they didn't just get, if they got 5 to 8 inches of eelgrass, well, why not get a foot deep of eelgrass? Why do I need palm fiber or coconut fiber to complete my filtration system?
That's a really valid point, David. I mean, something that's never been raised before.
And I think because I went through the functionalities of coconut fiber. So we looked at desalinization, salt concentration, production for insipid water, wastewater filtration, flood tunnel filter medium, weir or trench fishing, and soil erosion control. I cannot think, and I could not find any other reason why either of these fibers would be employed in both the filtration system and on the 6th platform in the money pit.
Right.
And none of those,
very interesting. Very interesting.
Those I just read make sense when you look at the constructs. In other words, on the, for example, you want insipid water. What are you going to do? Go down in the money pit to go get the water as it's been filtered through? If the filtration system then drains off down into the flood tunnel and down to, how are you going to get that water? Same thing with salt concentration and desalination. It was, at that time, it was known that if you need salt, you gather eelgrass and you burn it. And you have a residual of ash and salt. And then it's easy to separate that. You did not need to build a 145-foot long trench, 7.5 feet wide, 5 feet deep, to collect salt.
Right. Very interesting. Very interesting. Just looking at some of our comments here. Amy's pointing out palms are holy. The leaves were thrown down for Jesus to walk upon in his return upon to the Holy Land. Yeah, that's true. Of
That's right.
course, they would take a holy symbol with them. Yeah, they need to look at the types of trees.
I mean, aren't the artifacts that we're talking about holy symbols?
Yeah,
And that they're revered, and whether there are other things that we don't know about from maybe other earlier societies and cultures that they absconded with as well. Why would you skip what was the big thing that you could actually get your hands on growing right then and there?
right, right.
Or are you going to go 18,000 miles over to India
To get
for
coconut husk.
2 tons of fiber to take to Nova Scotia?
Right, right. And I think the original theory was, David, that they had used it for packing purposes. That it was used to protect whatever they would have, like in boxes or whatever. And then when they got there, they had it on hand, kind of like what you just suggested with the date palm fiber. That
Okay,
it was there, and so then they would use it to filter the sand out of the flood tunnels. But
so
if that's what they were doing,
that's one of the things that, of course, I had to check out. And in this book, we're talking 1.54 metric tons of coconut fiber. That's
oh wow,
2.5 40-foot metal shipping containers full of coconut fiber. So 18,000 coconuts worth of coconut fiber. How many containers do you need to have to use up that much? And we calculated using the Santa Maria, which was 100-ton now, even though they want to say it was the other ship. It wasn't. It was a now, according to Christopher Columbus's son. And it could hold 100 tons. So let's use back in those days, a tunnel or a ton was a big barrel.
mm-hmm.
So let's say you're going to cap off that barrel with 20% of coconut fiber. Just shove it on the top, seal it, you're good to go. So whatever's inside is not rummaging around.
Yeah.
It would take 2 ships, 200 tunnels to hold that much coconut fiber.
Wow.
So
that doesn't even seem possible.
And from what I've read or understand, they wouldn't have taken the stone ossuaries that held the iconographic relics up and onto a ship. They would put what's inside there in something easier to carry, or maybe a sack, who knows what. But
sure.
Even if it was packed with fiber, would it be coconut fiber? Someone went from the Temple Mount back in that time frame to go get coconut fiber to now repack. But wait a second, how could they have packed it in time for the Templars to have found it if it was that same age? So exactly. It wasn't like King Solomon brought back coconut fiber when he sent his ships off to Ceylon to get pearls and amber and said, hey, stop and get some of that coconut fiber. They packed these items down in the caves underneath the Temple Mount. It would have been what, 70 AD,
Right.
100 BCE. So it wasn't. It was at the same time that the Templars were in the Levant, and so it just doesn't wash.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that it wasn't that date palm fiber couldn't have been used for packing, maybe
Correct.
on a ship.
Correct.
But that's still a lot of boxes or casks or crates or barrels to fill.
It sure is. Our friend Z is saying Judean dates had medicinal properties. Yep.
Yeah.
Kat, one of our regular viewers. Hi, Kat. Would they use it for caulking leaks that developed? Well, yeah.
Yes. As a matter of fact, one of the slides I showed you was a boat, and that boat made in Bahrain. It's a modern boat, in the 1900s, but it's made out of palm branches and date palm branches and date palm fiber all sewn together. Wow. So it had the same capabilities. The only benefit really of coconut fiber is that it is more resistant to salt water than date palm fiber, but not much, because the lignin percentage of lignin inside the fibers is almost identical. And so that's what doesn't break down by salt water. And so you're going to get a similar kind of capability.
Wow. It really is fascinating. And Gretchen makes the point. Hi, Gretchen. Good to see you, my friend. She's telling you, great theory, David. So glad to see this dealt with in depth. And that's just it. This is what David and I you and I were talking about this yesterday, David, when we visited. This idea that if anything's going to answer it, it's science, and that's what you really dialed in to, is this idea of let's analyze these materials, and you should be able to find an answer. And I'm quoting you from yesterday. So,
right. But I will take one objection to what Gretchen said. It's not a theory. It's simply the facts of the history and of what the plant can or cannot do and what it was and wasn't used for. If
right.
it happens to dovetail into the Templar theory, that's fine. But if it's not, and they determine it is coconut fiber, we still have the same mystery, but we know what the fiber was, where it came from, and what it was used to then analyze, well, what would they have used it for on Oak Island?
Correct. And again, would the Templars have used it on a pre-Columbian journey? It's really some very interesting questions.
And if you're looking at, according to the analysis of the ships, because, okay, as I tell you in this book, what were the ships that they would have used to get to Oak Island? Believe it or not, the only real ship that the Templars could have used was a longboat. The larger, I think it's pronounced Knur, longboat. Otherwise, we're talking tureens.
Right.
We're talking about rowing.
Yeah.
And the sails were only going to be usable in the positive wind. You know, if it's not blowing in the direction you're going to, you're rowing, because
because they couldn't tack that. Yeah.
The ships are way too small.
Yeah. Good point. John Edwards is asking, what is the lifespan of coconut fibers, and what is the rate of decomposition, if we know it?
Good question. I know the answer, but it surprised me. If a coconut were to fall on the ground and you rip it open and take out the coconut and leave the husk on the ground, it'll completely decompose in 4 to 5 years.
Oh, wow.
If you wreck that coconut husk and you bury it under 3 feet of sand, you're going to find the longest date is Oak Island. So you're looking at, let's say, between 1229 and 1330 to now. So that's what, 800, 900 years and counting. According to the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, they said that the carbon remaining in the core fiber that they analyzed was only 5%. So you can see that the lifetime of that core fiber was not much longer.
Oh, wow.
But they don't have any other studies other than Oak Island to show how long it could have been. And that's based almost entirely on the amount of lignin versus cellulose in the actual cell fiber.
Wow. Again, it's like, this, and this is the kind of thing that I just love, David, it's just the hard science of it. Just you could analyze it and dial it in. Let's see. And Mary, basically echoing what you said, she saw John's question and she just looked it up, and like you said, 2 to 4 years.
Well, in the products that you're buying at the nursery for your plants and stuff like that, most of those have also been treated with insecticides, fungicides, and nowadays they're actually putting a coating of rubber on it to add to it, because people aren't see instead of popcorn, I brought some roasted coconut fiber, okay? And if you take this, okay, and I put it out in the backyard, who knows when it's going to decompose, because it's been retted and there's not much left on this fiber other than the lignin and the cellulose. And the only thing that's going to break down the lignin is the UV rays, which will help in the decomposition by other means.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a section on the aerobic and anaerobic things that eat fiber, and it needs the sunlight to start retted coconut to decompose. And the reason why on Oak Island it's lasted so long is because it hasn't been in that environment.
Right. And Jan says that it looks like it needs salt.
Well, it's salt water, a little bit fiber, maybe a little garlic salt. That's what it could use.
Of course, Z is wanting to know where the wine is. And Gretchen.
Wait.
Oh.
Wine is right here.
There you go. 1347 cognac. Amazing.
And there's a little bit left.
So Gretchen is responding to your comment. She says, yes, I stand corrected, David. And yes, I am so guilty of using the term theory, true words. Well, that's just it, Gretchen. I mean, you and I have talked about that as well before. The idea that, especially when we have, it's a word we throw around, in particular when we're talking about, the Curse of Oak Island in particular, where they talk about theorists. And I've said the same thing, David. It's like people say that I have an interesting theory. I'm like, well, it's not really a theory. It's just I've been just following the clues where they lead me, and this is what they say. So,
and the only reason I mention that is because I've tried to stay away from theories,
mm-hmm.
the popular ones, and I admit that I'm getting sucked into this Templar connection, but I'm trying to keep my distance.
I understand. And again, it's one of those things where I try to just, follow where the information leads. But
I'm reading John Edwards' comment about 5%. Can we work the problem backwards? So I'm going to answer it two ways. One, in the first book, when I wanted to figure out how long ago was the money pit filled back in, I had two things to look at: soil settlement and rate of rot of the oak logs. My professor that I was dealing with had brain surgery and never produced the second or the first of the two, that is soil settlement. And this is how I got involved in this in the first place. I saw a CSI episode where there was a dead body in the desert, and they could tell by the depression and where the burial site was that, oh my God, they buried the body 4 or 5 years ago. So I figured, let's go back to Oak Island. We know how much lower the ground it was. We know that there was 2 feet of detritus, leaves and stuff that blew in, and we get to that flagstone. And then we know the flagstone put weight on the dirt below, which sped up. So there's an equation there. I just couldn't provide it to the reader. However, on the rate of rot, I did provide the report, and it's from a mycologist. That's what people who study fungus are. And he determined, based on the description of the logs in the environment that we knew that the logs were in, that the logs would be 70% exhausted of carbon mass in 420 years.
Oh, wow.
So now think about that. You take 420 years and subtract it from 1795, and you get 1365.
Yeah, you're right.
Now it would be better had the platforms collapsed, and we would have had a date perhaps of how much more time they could have held up that dirt. But 1365 is very close to many theories and even the timeline of the coconut fiber.
Wow. That's cool. That's
so
really cool.
I would like to do what John is suggesting, but again, it's kind of like the eelgrass. Who's going to take the time to put it in a time capsule and keep checking on it? Has it decomposed yet?
Yeah.
We know if the date of the radiocarbon date was between 1229 and 1330, haven't we kind of given ourselves what that remaining 5% is? If we took, how many years is that, divided by 100%, and then subtract 5%, that's how many more years it would go before, or vice versa. How do we get there?
Right. Lori's asking, or making the point that the earliest date is 1024. Lori, is that the dating of the coconut fiber? I think you're saying, but then again, when you're doing carbon dating, it's usually a range, isn't it?
And she's incorrect.
Oh.
The WHO report, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, they dated carbon fiber between 825 and 885, giving it a date of 855 AD.
Oh, wow.
Now, I argue that they're wrong, and so did Les McPhee. In his report of radiocarbon dating, he shows it at 810 because incorrectly they used the existing date of 1995 when they did the test and not the PB, let's see, the year before. Anyway, they're off by about 50 years.
Right. And Lori's clarifying. She said, no, she was talking about the date of the stick in the swamp. Yeah, that's true.
Right.
I do remember
I
that.
have a different date of stick.
Yep.
Stump and swamp. I've got sticks and swamp. Sticks under the paved wharf.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I've shown you what the source of the information is. If it was a the Curse of Oak Island episode, I don't show you when they found it. I show you when they tell you on the show when it dated to.
When it aired, yeah. Yep.
The other ones, Geochron, and Beta Labs and others, those are the people who made that determination.
Yeah. So researcher, author, friend Stephanie McPherson says, maybe a dumb question, but would they have used it to make paper? That's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought of that, Stephanie.
Yes.
Oh.
Coconut fiber, not so much. Because even in India, they had many more products that they could, you take a plant fiber and you basically emulsify it. You mass it up, you cut it up, turn it into gunk, and then you dry out that gunk to get paper. Coconut fiber was pretty indestructible. You could make clothes out of it and mats and this and that, but paper was way too much work for the other plant fibers that they had.
Wow. Good answer. Very interesting stuff, gang. And I think Tracy is saying that she's going to provide us all with the wine next time. Right, Tracy? Pretty sure.
Now, you did see see the label on that? Can you read the label any better?
Let's see.
It says...
I can't see the bottom.
All right. It says Chateau de la Roquefort, Poitou Charentais, La Roquefort en Agoumis.
Oh, wow.
In other words, I have no idea what it says, but one more time.
Yeah, that's great.
And finally, it's a prop. I was going to make a commercial for the book, and this was going to be part of the prop.
Excellent. Well, David, you just gave us a whirlwind of things to think about here. And I want to thank you for joining us because this, like I said, I really enjoy all of your posts in Ghosts of Bacon and the other groups. Please keep them coming, and please let me know when your book comes out. Post all your information in the Ghosts of Bacon. I'll have you back on, and we'll talk about your book if you'd like.
I talk about the latest book that's out. It's also been posted on a website so people can read it for free. It's only 60 pages. This is basically the hunch. This is where I've sent to 40 some palm experts to say, what is this? It's got the SEM images. It's got all the data from all the different people who have made a determination. And I want these experts to say, no, that's not coconut fiber. Or yes, it is.
Or yes, it is.
So it's free online on the website, and it's $9 at Amazon. Not that I make any money off of it.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Great stuff. And what's the website, David?
So the website to read the second volume for free is www.oakislandmysterytrees.com. There's a passcode to get into that website, and it's capital C, capital O, capital I, capital R.
Core.
The other website to read the book I just showed you is, drumroll, www.oakislandmysteryfibers.com. And there is no passcode to get there.
Excellent.
If you go to our book's Facebook page, which is Oak Island Mystery Trees and Other Forensic Answers, most of the books have been posted, so no one has to buy a book. Everything is laid out, excerpts from the different chapters.
Wow, that's great. I mean, so much work goes into it, and it's really generous of you just to provide the information out there. So thank you for that, David.
And hey, if anyone wants some popcorn, I'll be more than glad to bag it and send it to you. You can roast your own fibers.
There you go. Penny is saying, thank you, David. Very informative. Jan, thanks for all the info. Very interesting. John saying, thanks to both of us. Amy saying it was a really fun episode. I agree. And Kat, remarkable insights, David.
Hey, one more thing before we go, just real quick, because your listeners would probably, if I can actually, there we go.
There we go. Fantastic. And Tracy, I saw that. I'm going to hold you there, young lady. Thanks, David. I'm going to pop you out here into the little waiting room here, and I'll wrap things up and I'll decompress with you here right after the show quickly. Thanks for joining us, buddy. This was
a lot. I appreciate it.
A lot of fun. All right, gang. That's David. What a riot. He and I visited yesterday for about an hour. We were trying to prep for this and just make sure the connection was working. And I don't know. I had a smile on my face the whole time. So much fun. So listen, peeps, what a cool episode. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. And be sure to check back. I promise as soon as this book is done, I'll be popping back on a little more frequently on the Ghosts of Bacon in terms of being more active in our group and all of those kinds of things. But right now I'm 250 pages in. I have another 100 to go in terms of revision and editing. This is going to be a good one. I think you're going to like it. But until, let's see, in a couple of weeks, we'll do this all again. And until then, just be nice to people. They need it. See you later. Thanks for joining. Talk to you soon.